Well, hello, everyone. I'm James Dobson, and you're listening to Family Talk, a listener-supported ministry. In fact, thank you so much for being part of that support for James Dobson Family Institute.
Well, welcome back to Family Talk. I'm Roger Marsh. You know, with advances in medical technology, various surgeries and procedures can be performed on an infant before he or she is even born. Science continues to confirm what God already has told us in His Word, that every human life has value even before birth. Each and every person is molded and formed by the very hands of our Creator, and we must celebrate life and defend it, especially by protecting the preborn. On today's classic Family Talk broadcast, you're going to hear the conclusion of Dr. James Dobson's powerful interview with Dr. William Lile. Dr. Lile is a pro-life obstetrician and gynecologist with a private practice near Pensacola, Florida. On yesterday's program, Dr. Lile shared his passion for kingdom service and why he believes life begins at conception. Today, he'll be sharing stories about the lives saved through a revolutionary procedure that can actually reverse an abortion. So, without further ado, here is Dr. James Dobson to reintroduce today's guest right here on Family Talk.
Dr. Lile, you were here with us yesterday, and that was a deeply moving program. I'm still touched by what you had to say about the unborn child and your love for that youngster that's developing there. You don't refer to it as an unborn child, but as a preborn child, because Correct. That's a human being that's soon to be delivered. And an 8-inch strip down the birth canal does not change anything but the address.
Correct.
And for us to kill 60 million of those babies, I don't know how God can withhold His judgment on us. That is so wicked and so evil. But I want our listeners to hear today a fairly recent experience that you had that is also deeply moving. This is an example of what we've been talking about, what we were yesterday. It's really about reversal of abortion.
Correct. Abortions can be performed two ways, surgically and medically or chemically. Right now, the medical abortions where a medicine is given to the mom up to 70 days, 10 weeks after the first day of the last menstrual period, the estimates are that up to 30% of all abortions are now being performed with medicine. In fact, there's an organization that is trying to have abortion pills be available online and through the mail services where you can have an abortion just mail order.
That's almost malpractice, isn't it?
Yes. In fact, there are state laws against that, but it is referred to as self-induced abortion, SIA, and there are many advocates around the country that are trying to make this much more available. But the thing is, a medical abortion can often be reversed. Just like we look at the narcotic problem that is affecting the United States. In 2017, 72,000 people lost their lives due to an overdose of a narcotic. We have a medication called Narcan, where if somebody comes to our labor and delivery or presents to our emergency room, Narcan is available if somebody has a narcotic overdose. It is like a switch. It immediately will take a patient that is unconscious, might not even be breathing. We give them this shot, and immediately they can wake up, they start breathing and answering your questions. So we have the technology to reverse narcotics. Well, with 30% of all the abortions now also being performed with a medication, somebody might not know that once they change their mind, that there are physicians throughout the country who can actually say, okay, you changed your mind. Do you realize that we can reverse what was already started? There are two primary medications that are used to induce an abortion. One is called RU486. It is an anti-progesterone medication. Progesterone is the hormone that the body releases when it's pregnant that sends a signal to the whole body, we're pregnant, let's start preparing for the change. Progestation. The medication RU486 blocks progesterone. So the body says, hey, we have progesterone, we're pregnant, let's keep the pregnancy going. Then RU46 is given, blocks that signal, and the body goes, well, I thought we were pregnant. And then 3 days later, they take a medication called Cytotec, which causes uterine contractions, and that expels the baby from the inside. Well, when it comes to progesterone, if an anti-progesterone medication is given, there was a gentleman who's a family practice doctor named George Delgado who years ago thought, well, if it's an anti-progesterone, what if I can convince the body that is pregnant that it's still pregnant? And we can do that by giving supplemental progesterone. We use progesterone in our practice every week. Patients who have a history of preterm labor are given injections of a medication called Makena, a progesterone that keeps the pregnancy going. Patients who've had recurrent miscarriage are given progesterone to keep the pregnancy going. So the thought was, well, can we reverse this started and initiated abortion? Dr. Delgado recently published an article in a peer-reviewed journal of over 100 successful abortion reversals. A lot of pregnancy centers don't know that we can reverse the abortion process even after it's already been started. A lot of doctors, a lot of emergency rooms don't know. So
Is there opposition to it?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
And this is an all or none phenomenon when it comes to reversing RU46. Look at the name. Anybody who has worked in the restaurant industry realizes that when the chef says 86 the meatloaf, what does that mean? It means we're out of meatloaf. Kill the meatloaf special. So when you look at the name of this drug, RU486ing, RU486ing this life
was intentional?
No, it was not intentional. That just happened to be the numbers that were used to identify this particular compound that they were working with.
I fought that when it was coming into legal practice. I fought it like crazy, and we lost.
So we have now had cases, I've had successful reversals. One was a successful reversal of RU46, and we had people all over the country. In fact, here at Family Talk, we had people praying for this young girl and for this baby. Week later, we had a heartbeat. 2 weeks later, we had a heartbeat. Third week, she didn't show up. We called, and she had received such pressure from family and from the boyfriend that she went and had a surgical abortion. And it was a punch to the gut. Here we really thought that we had been successful, and we celebrated that, but it was not our fault. We had a duty to be faithful. We shared the truth. We were successful, but then she made a decision. And what we also realized was that we can't get discouraged when somebody makes the wrong decision. Just like if you share the gospel with somebody, you don't share the gospel with somebody and they say, no, that's just not for me, and then say to yourself, well, I'm never doing that again. No, we have a duty to share the gospel. We don't save. That's up to the Holy Spirit, but we have a duty to share the truth. But we also have had successful reversals that have continued on. We recently had a mom who was pregnant who had been given RU46 and had taken the medication Cytotec to cause the contractions, and she presented to the emergency room at our hospital. I went down, we did an ultrasound, and she didn't just have a baby on the inside, she had twins on the inside. Twins that both still had a heartbeat, even though she was bleeding. We talked to her and we said, we'd like to help you. She said, I didn't realize what was going on. I didn't realize the life that was inside, especially that it was twins. And we said, well, we have medications and we have protocols that we can help support the pregnancy and reverse the medication that you've already taken. Well, we gave her the progesterone and we were successful. Weeks later, we were successful, and she still has the heartbeats on these babies. But then we got a call from what's called the IRB, and IRB is the Institutional Review Board. They are the group of physicians and ethicists that overlook all the decisions made in the hospital as far as research projects and interventions that are performed. And they wanted me to come and present before the IRB, and I couldn't even
You were called on the carpet for doing
I was called on the
it.
carpet, and at first I didn't know what I was being called, to the IRB for, because this case wasn't even in my thought process. I'm like, I can't even think of anything. And I called them back, and they said, well, we wanted to go over how we have a concern that you're practicing experimental medicine in the emergency room. And I'm like, when? And they said, well, that case of the lady who was pregnant and had taken the abortion pill and you reversed it. I said, oh, my goodness. I mean, why? So I knew all the science and the facts and even had the written consent form. So I presented before the IRB, what I had done, how we had informed the mother of what we were doing, and how that was the desire of the mother. And after reviewing it, the IRB said that they could determine that was a reasonable course of action.
Well, was that still controversial within your medical community?
Our community and the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, of course, does not want abortion reversal.
Dr. Lile, the IRB could, if they chose, remove your medical license for doing something that they consider to be experimental. And in fact, that was a possibility. You put your profession at risk for doing this. Was there a discussion about that possibility?
That's always a possibility. I mean, an IRB, Institutional Review Board, is there to protect the interest of the patients and of the hospital. And when a physician would be found to be risking the lives of patients or would be, putting at risk the hospital itself as far as from a liability standpoint, if they deemed that I had behaved outside of the scope of medicine that would be reasonable and acceptable, I could have lost my privileges at the hospital. But I think when I presented the data, presented the patient, presented the story, presented the patient's desires and the outcome, there was no denying that it was the right thing to do. It was a safe thing to do. It met the desires of the patient, and her choice was to protect the life of their baby. And if we're talking about choice, and so many people do, her choice was to save the life of the baby, and that's what we honored.
Choice has come to mean abortion.
Correct. And we need to emphasize the protecting of the life. So I saw this as a life that was threatened from abortion, and mom's choice was to protect that life, and she regretted the decision that she had made. So whether it was putting my privileges at the hospital at risk, well, it's still the right thing to do. A lot of people do the right thing for kingdom service, knowing that it might put their own job in jeopardy. There are a lot of people who will stand up in their workplace and say, this is the right thing to do. I will not do X. I will not do Y.
You're minimizing that, but this was a very courageous thing for you to do, wasn't it?
It was the right thing to do, and I would do it again.
And the twins both survived.
When we saw her on follow-up, we had successfully reversed the abortion. We still had heart tones, and she's now following with a different physician because she lives outside of our town, out of state.
So the babies have not yet been delivered.
Correct. There's another medication which can be used to cause a medical abortion. It's called methotrexate. Methotrexate is a chemotherapy. Chemotherapy works by attacking rapidly dividing cells. Methotrexate can be used to reverse GYN cancer such as choriocarcinoma. It's also used for some types of arthritis. But methotrexate attacks rapidly dividing cells, and a new pregnancy, a new baby, is an amazing collection of rapidly dividing cells. Within 28 days, you have a heartbeat. Methotrexate will attack that pregnancy. Well, we had a patient who, was actually a nursing student, and she found out she was pregnant. She went to a local abortion clinic, and she went there not seeking an abortion, but that's where she was used to going for her GYN care. She was used to going there for care, so she knew their address, she knew their phone number. And she was there for about an hour. She was actually convinced that this was not a good time for her in her life, even though she was planning on getting married, engaged, and had a career. They'd convinced her that having a baby now was not good. So she signed a consent, she swiped her credit card, and she was given the medication methotrexate and walked out thinking, what did I just do? She went out with her partner. They sat in the car, and they're like, what just happened? She went home and just was sullen and was somber, and she started doing some research. And she found that website, abortionpillreversal.com, that was set up by Dr. Delgado. It was a Sunday morning. She called that 800 number. She spoke with a volunteer nurse in California, told her what was going on, and she did not want to lose her baby. That nurse then looks on the internet and looks for a pro-life doc that's nearby her. Well, I happen to be about an hour away from her. It was Sunday morning. We're getting ready to go to church, and we're actually at church, and we're getting ready to start our church service. And I was getting ready to sing in church, and I get the call, and they said, can you call this lady, get some information? She doesn't want to lose her baby. I said, absolutely. So I call her, talk to her, explain the options. At this point, there had only been 3 abortion reversals with methotrexate that had ever been performed in the United States, and as far as we know, in the world. We got the information from her, and then I need to find the medication that's the reversal medication. It's a medication called leucovorin to reverse the effects of methotrexate. My pastor's getting ready to go to church, and he says, Bill, come on, we're getting ready to start. And I said, I can't. He goes, what's going on? I said, I'm trying to reverse an abortion. And he says, go, go, go. He says, good luck, we'll be praying for you. Well, when somebody says, we'll be praying for you, you kind of think, well, what does that really mean? So while I'm calling around to different pharmacies looking for this medication in Mobile, Alabama, he stops the church service, has everybody stop. He tells the story. And the whole church service prayed for this young girl and for what we were going to try to do. So I found a pharmacy, and I called this pharmacist, and I said, hey, do you carry the medication leucovorin? And she goes, yeah, I do. What dose do you want? And I said, that can be either 15 or 25 milligrams. And I gave her the dosage and the prescription that I wanted the patient to use. And the pharmacist stops. And she pauses, and she said, Dr. Lile, she says, are you trying to reverse an abortion? And I paused, and I said, yeah, I am. And she said, Dr. Lile, she goes, I'm with you on this. I will take care of this young lady personally. So then I called the patient back, and I said, hey, you've got to go over to this pharmacy, ask for this young lady, and they have the medication in stock. So she goes to the pharmacy, and she says her name, and they take care of business. Well, when I talked to the patient later that day, I said, hey, did you get to go to the pharmacy? And she said, Dr. Lile, that is an interesting pharmacy. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I got there, I told her my name, and she said the pharmacist came from around behind the counter. She gave me a big hug, and she said she'd be praying for me. I went to go pay for the reversal medication, and the pharmacist put her hand up and said, oh, sweetie, I got this. The pharmacist from her own pocket paid for the reversal medication. So then I had never met the patient before. So a week later, the patient came into the office, and we did an ultrasound. Methotrexate at that gestational age has about a 90% chance of inducing a successful abortion, 98%. We did an ultrasound, and we had a heartbeat. We had her back a week later. We had a heartbeat. Well, we're concerned because methotrexate can cause damage to a developing baby. We had our maternal fetal medicine doctors do ultrasounds, and then we delivered the baby. Baby's perfect. Healthy baby. But the real key is there were a lot of things involved. There was a lot of prayer that was involved in this. But, when we all look at how we do kingdom service, we think, well, I'm just doing this in my church. I'm just teaching Sunday school. I'm just working in the nursery. I'm, blessed, and I'm working here at Family Talk. Look at how many people were involved in the saving of the life of this one baby. There was a gentleman who set up a website called abortionpillreversal.com. He didn't know what was going on. There was a volunteer nurse who was manning the 800 number who happens to take the call on a Sunday morning. She then calls a gynecologist over in Pensacola, Florida. He then calls a pharmacist over in Mobile, Alabama. If any one of those links in that chain had not been there, we would not have been successful. I've never met the pharmacist. I've never met the nurse over in California. But everybody was involved in kingdom service. They all had their role to play. So as we're spending our 70, 80, 90 years here on this planet, we've got to really look at how are we performing kingdom service? What am I doing? Am I possibly going to be one of those links to save a life? Because, I showed you the picture of this little baby, earlier. Beautiful baby. And that baby had a 98% chance of not having that beautiful little smile. So it's the right thing to do. Can we win? Absolutely, but I think we really must win.
You know, I've said this before, but we can't do anything to earn our salvation. We all know that. But there are times in our lives as we try to serve the Lord that we think we feel Him or see Him smile. Have you ever felt like He's saying, I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw what you did.
You know, I think too, here's some free medical advice for everybody out there. Unless Jesus comes, y'all are going to die. And that is just the inevitable part of life, that we're all going to die. But then what happens? Well, to be absent from the body is present with the Lord. And I think about that moment when we will be face to face with Jesus. And we think about eternity here in heaven. And we're going to think back to the 70, 80, maybe 90 years we had for kingdom service here on this earth. And we're going to think back about what we did for kingdom service. And I think that all of us, when we look back at events like doing the right thing, sharing the gospel, standing up for somebody else, standing up for the preborn, defending the lives that are threatened by abortion, what's our goal? Our goal is to have Jesus look down at us, maybe because we're going to be on our knees saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, because we're here for eternity. And I think we all have that goal for Jesus to put his chin down and say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. And that should be all of our goals as we strive for kingdom service. Everybody here at Family Talk,
I care about that
listening.
more than anything else in the world.
Oh, if it takes our fastest rocket ship 54,000 years just to get to our closest star, that's distance, and distance and time are related. Hundreds of billions of stars, hundreds of billions of galaxies gives you an idea of what eternity is. And we may get 80, 90 years here on this planet to do that kingdom service. And we'll have new roles when we get to heaven, but this is our primary role now, is serve his kingdom.
Dr. William Lile, you've been our guest for 2 days. I'm just so grateful that you came here. You have ministered to me again. And I've had this same passion that you have to preserve as many of those tiny, precious lives as possible. And I will devote myself to it for as long as I have breath on this earth. And if I can influence more people through radio and books and what we've tried to do to make the right choice and do the right thing that you just talked about. What a wonderful use of time and energy and your belief system. And you've helped us do this today.
If people still have questions, they can always go to our website. Our website is prolifedoc.org. We have DVDs that are available that go through a lot more things than we were able to cover in this show, and just a lot of videos that are posted. And is abortion a sin? Yes. Is it a forgivable sin? Yes. And our goal is to share that forgiveness and to share that healing that only comes through the blood of Jesus Christ.
You're a hero of mine, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Well, what an encouraging conversation featuring Dr. William Lile and our own Dr. James Dobson here on Family Talk. Friend, if you feel inspired to stand up for the lives of the preborn and you'd like to learn more about Dr. Lile and his practice, just visit our website at drjamesdobson.org/Family Talk. That's drjamesdobson.org/Family Talk. And while you're there, be sure you also download the free PDF called What is a Woman According to God? We know that women have tremendous value in today's society, and now more than ever before, it's important for us in the body of Christ to speak truth about the value of and definition of what femininity looks like in the culture. To bring you this uplifting resource, the Dr. James Dobson Family Institute has partnered with our friend Dr. Owen Strand to encourage moms, wives, sisters, and daughters, and to affirm what God's design for women really is. Again, you can download the free PDF, What is a Woman According to God, when you go to drjamesdobson.org/Family Talk. And finally, check out the brand new resource from the Dr. James Dobson Family Institute called the Dr. Dobson Minute. This new Dr. Dobson Minute will provide young families with practical insights that will strengthen marriages and help build better parenting skills, all in 60 seconds every day. You can learn more about the Dr. Dobson Minute by going to our special website, drdobsonminute.org. That's drdobsonminute.org. Believe me, you'll be glad you did. Thanks for remembering that Family Talk is a listener-supported Christian radio program. It's because of you and your prayers and faithful financial support that we are able to bring quality content to you and your family each and every day. Learn more how you can support the JDFI financially when you go to drjamesdobson.org. If you'd like to, you can also reach us by phone at 877-732-6825. We'd love to connect with you over the phone. We can pray with and for you if that's what you need. And you can also make a donation to support our ministry as well. Again, the number to call is 877-732-6825. Well, I'm Roger Marsh. Thanks for joining us today. Have a blessed weekend, and be sure to tune in again on Monday for another edition of Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk.
This has been a presentation of the Dr. James Dobson Family Institute.